in order to experience more fulfillment in their lives.
So when you say taking them through the experience to experience more fulfillment, let's say someone like me who's not that I am this, but let's say someone who's very selfish and it's all about me, 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 and not about you, you, you. How would you break that down to someone like me who wants to have a better experience, not only for themselves, but the partner that they're with?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if I take this in terms from the perspective of authentic tantra methods are really for harnessing your own innate power through awareness and also through pleasure, but it also means you wanting and desiring to share those experiences with other people, and obviously just not the sexual side of these things, but the overall joy and pleasure that we're getting from a lot of these practices. It's meant to be, it's meant to be shared, it's meant to be expressed, it's meant to be a group effort, I guess you can say.
Is that difficult for the clients that you deal with to understand that it's an experience that is better shared?
It really depends. I think that a lot of us hold on to these beliefs about ourselves, self-limiting beliefs. And a lot of this is due to unresolved trauma. So, of course, the role of trauma is to keep us in pain. It's to disconnect us from the world and from ourselves and from the people that we love most of all. So, in order for us to truly connect from this authentic, loving, compassionate place, we also have to heal, right?
And do you help those who are maybe experiencing this trauma that you mentioned? What's some of the ways that you can help them through their healing process to understand the trauma that is preventing them from doing certain things in regards to the tantra that you teach?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things that I do is I take individuals through a method called transformational therapy. And this is, again, where we dive deeply into the subconscious mind. And it's really important to acknowledge the subconscious because it creates over 95% of our reality, which is like, that's a big number. That's a lot. And the only way to access the subconscious is through very deep states of relaxation and or deep states of meditation, which again, like, we can't get to that because it's excruciating pain. Like, it's very painful for us to sit down and try to meditate for hours. A lot of us actually disassociate and don't ever try it again because it's so painful. So transformational therapy is such a wonderful way for us to literally go right into that subconscious memory bank, so to say, and we get to select how we want to feel and kind of edit out the ways in which they're no longer serving us. So that's a really big chunk of what I do. And then from there, I take individuals through a process of authentic tantra so that they can start to learn how to harness pleasure as a mechanism for healing on all levels, as well as sexually.
Where were you 10 years ago when I was dating this young lady and we needed help? And that's going to introduce me to story time. Ava, I hope you're ready. There was this young lady I was dating, and she said, Terrain, the reason why you don't have children is because you have ran out of sperm. And I looked at her, same way that you just looked at me, and I was like, say what? What are you talking about? She's like, yes. She's like, you've done it so much, so selfishly that you've ran out and you don't have any children. And I wish, Ava, you were around because I could have said, hey, I need you to speak to this young blonde lady here. And can you explain to her, Ava, that she's out of her mind because I have no idea what she's talking about? So when you say transformation between two people, what would that look like if we came to, we said, Ava, we have a problem here. I can't figure it out. She can't figure it out. We need help. Help us, Ava, because we need you right now.
Yeah, so I think that maybe that comment is rooted in a lot of shame and guilt, and I think that's kind of rooted in how we all feel about our sexuality in some way or another. It's rooted in our culture, it's rooted in society, it's rooted in religion. So I think that some of these really big things oftentimes do come up in the bedroom that stem out into the relationship as a whole, because let's face it, when we're not having great, loving, connective sex, it is affecting all facets of our entire lives. It affects us financially, whether you realize it or not. It affects us emotionally and mentally and all of these things. So I would say that we need to look at this perspective from a holistic view, right? And it's not just about the sex. In fact, most any sexual type of issue or sexual problem has a non-sexual solution. And working through authentic tantra, again, it's not just about these sexual aspects, but looking at ourselves from a holistic perspective, looking at ourselves as full human beings who need to experience connection above all, right? So I think that for most couples, the main issue is connection, but it's also the thing that we're most afraid of. And we all have this kind of connection survival style to one way or another, where again, connection is a thing we're all striving for, but it's the thing that we fear the most. So working through a lot of these methods, it's really to connect us to our innate self, our innate nature, that has always been within us, but we have all that gunk and like shitty stuff that's getting in the way of us taking that next step forward. And I just want to mention that connection is how we start to feel more fulfilled in our lives as a whole too.
And is there a difference between how men and women would approach that connection, Eva?
It really depends. I think that as individuals, we are so complex. I would say that a lot of men who I've worked with definitely fear intimacy and connection, because of different societal norms. And women are more afraid, I think, of also that vulnerability and allowing people to come in because there's pain involved from the past.
I think that plays a big part because there's some times where, as you mentioned, many of these issues that may come up on that level may have a non-sexual solution. It could be that something that you're looking to do or get in the mood of would remind you of a past trauma or a past bad experience. Now, if I've had a bad experience and I came to you, what are some of the steps that you and I would work through to get me past that bad experience so I can move forward and be a better partner for the person that I'm with?
Yeah, I think if we can elaborate on maybe what some of those bad experiences could be, I think instead of saying, one experience is bad and one is good, we again, like if we look at it from the perspective of how you actually want to feel, I think even looking at it in a different perspective gives us a little bit more of an opportunity to go in without the shame, without the guilt, and actually start to unravel the layers that could be a result of whatever trauma or whatever belief pattern that this individual is experiencing. And trauma works in really funny ways, right? Trauma is not just about these big shock events that might have happened to us when we were younger or even in adulthood. Like, I think when we think of trauma, we think of sexual abuse, we think of rape or, these big things that have happened. But I think that when I work with people, the most common things are these smaller traumas that develop over time that kind of compile upon one another, and then they start to show up in the relationship or show up in the bedroom in these ways that we cannot understand from a conscious level. So again, when I work with these individuals, it's also about shifting our perspective of how we view the things that are showing up for us. And again, authentic tantra is, it's not about saying that thing is bad, I shouldn't be experiencing that, I should just be able to override it. And I think we do that a lot. We say anxiety is bad, depression is bad, anger is bad. And instead of being able to say, no, I can harness the energy of this emotion, this infliction that I'm experiencing, and actually transform it and transmute it into pure medicine, actually. And I take individuals through this process through a variety of practices and tools. I do practice and teach lineage-based tantra. I do not teach sacred sexuality. So there's a big difference in the way that I do approach holistic sexual healing. One of those practices can be the Tibetan 5 elements. And this is an elemental system that our body is comprised of. And it allows us to heal the energy body from the inside out. And as we know, any type of emotion that we're experiencing, any type of illness, any type of disease is stemming from the energy body. So if we can heal and repair the energy channels, then that's going to stem out into our physical bodies and into our reality as a whole.
So explain to us the tantra that you do and the basis of it when it comes to your clients, just so we understand specifically what you're offering to the clients and how you're helping them.
Yeah, I love this question because it gives me an opportunity to bring a new perspective into the world of Tantra. So right now in the West, a lot of the Tantra that we are seeing is Neo-Tantra or sacred sexuality. And Neo-Tantra is not necessarily based in any type of lineage in particular. It can be practices and things like that are taken from maybe a Hindu context or a Taoist context, and then it's kind of compiled into what we see now mostly occurring in the West, which is sacred sexuality and things like that. And there are really wonderful neo-sexuality or neo-tantra practitioners out there, but it's not something that's regulated. So anyone can go to a tantra massage workshop for 3 days, and then they're working on clients' bodies. And I think that can be really, really dangerous. And there's a lot of things that can happen within that re-implement trauma and that are not safe. Now, working with lineage-based tantra, which is what I practice and teach through Tibetan Buddhism, is a little bit unique to the West because a lot of the teachings that I offer my clients, you cannot find online. You can't find them on YouTube. You can't find them in a book. It's literally from an oral-based lineage, meaning you get the transmutation or the transformation through the embodiment of that practice through my own experience. So there's a relationship there between client and practitioner where there's like a alchemy, I guess you can say, through words and through the energy that is happening, which creates a really profound experience for individuals and also a safe container, because when you're practicing from lineage-based tantra, there's already ethics and morals that are woven into the practices themselves.
And you use this you use this method, I should say, to assist those who are experiencing sexual dysfunction as well.
Absolutely. I think sexual dysfunction is at an all-time high right now, especially even in younger men. And before we started chatting, we did mention things like porn addiction, and I think we could get into that a little bit more from here. I think that a lot of the sexual dysfunctions that we're seeing is also due to a lack of sexual education and really being aware of our bodies, being able to stay present with our bodies, because let's face it, like in the Western world, we're always searching for like novelty, like the next novelty, whether it's binge watching Netflix or watching porn every single day, that's going to have a big effect on our brains.
All the men under 25 are like, when it comes to sexual dysfunction and porn, good Lord. I can't believe you have me sharing all kinds of stuff today, Ava. I used to watch interviews on porn stars because I found them fascinating, because I want to understand what makes them do what they do. And you begin to realize they're regular people like you and I. They're not superheroes or superheroines, but You're right. I had a friend. He was completely addicted, hours a day on porn. And it kind of took over his life. And when you say porn addiction and sexual dysfunction, I'm guessing you're drawing a connection with it because you're always looking for that for that next hit of dopamine, and you want to raise the bar and raise the bar and raise the bar. So is it something that you find is impacting younger men and women at a higher rate these days versus, let's say, years past?
Absolutely, because look at the type of porn that we're watching, right? So, like, even as we talk about like AI, like as things are becoming more realistic, right? Or even the type of porn we're watching might be more I don't know, like they throughout the years you have to get a little bit more I don't want to say violent with the type of porn. There are some types of violent porn out there, but because of that constant dopamine hit, it's like people are getting bored of the porn that was, considered porn 30 years ago. So again, it's going back to that constant search for dopamine. And again, like I'm not I'm not anti-porn, by the way. I respect sex workers. I was a sex worker myself. I was a stripper, for a while. And like, there's a huge respect for that. But I think that because of the lack of sexual education that we have, when we start to get our sexual education through porn at such a young age, it's automatically starting to rewire those neural pathways to continue seeking it into adulthood. And this is especially prevalent for men. I think that for men, I'm not trying to generalize too much here, but for men are mostly visual creatures, and the brain is wired a little bit differently. So as you start, I think it's a huge number that boys are starting to watch porn like from 10 years old, maybe younger, into adulthood. So you have to think about the context of this individual who still has their brain developing, and they've never received sexual education, like proper sexual education, like about pleasure and orgasm, and not just like, okay, you do this thing and don't get pregnant type of shit, right? So again, moving into adulthood, we're already suffering from this this need for us to continue looking for that dopamine, and it's the only thing we're familiar with. So it can be something that's very difficult to break out of. And I also believe that we should use the word addiction very lightly here in the conversation, because I think that the word addiction can also imply shame and guilt. But instead, I want to empower men and women to use porn or erotica in very healthy ways, where they're still accessing their fullest pleasure potential. And you did mention, right, how does sexual dysfunction tie into this? And again, it's because, again, as we search for those constant dopamine hits and it changes the receptors in our brain, it then creates a lack of sensation. So emotionally, we start to feel like the things in our external world no longer fulfill us. So we can become bored with the things that we once saw that were like pleasurable and fun, and the things we took joy in. And then on a physical level, you can start to create numbness in the genitals too, for watching too much porn.
For those who are following along on Facebook, YouTube, and my social media, please continue to stay tuned, subscribe, and follow for more amazing videos and interviews like the one we have with Ava today. And we will be back for more.